Hello, and welcome to another edition of Your Therapist Needs Therapy. I'm your host, Jeremy Schumacher, licensed marriage and family therapist. Honestly, this week I'm feeling pretty good. I took a vacation, so therapy's great. Letting your nervous system rest and reset is even better. Time in nature. Y'all, go tromp through the woods. Find a frozen lake to go out on and just be. Or enjoy not cold weather if that's your thing. I don't know. There's something about making coffee and looking out the window and seeing wildlife out and about. That's really lovely. So, as society continues to collapse, personally, fairly well resourced right now, which is work that I do as a therapist. So that's fine. I'm not bragging. I'm here to talk about the Super Bowl. And the Super Bowl's always been a weird thing for me because the NFL is the one sort of billion-dollar industry that I just can't quit. A lot of other things in my life, not like I'm some sort of perfect example of standing up for my ethics. But a lot of things as I've gotten older, I've soured on the more I've learned about how rotten an industry is to its core. I quit watching WWE a long time ago. I still love pro wrestling, and I watch a lot of the indies. I watch AEW, New Japan, but it gets harder and harder, and Sail on the Seven Seas, and being opposed to the streaming services, buying physical copies of things rather than needing everything through streaming. And some of that's just I'm an old man shouting at clouds, I guess, but some of that is very intentional. And the reality of the NFL is there's not much of it that vibes with my ethics. I'm pretty opposed to the concussion sports. I think it is a real looming continual problem that we don't have a good handle on. I think we are exploiting people's health and their brain's wellness for insane amounts of profit to people who are not taking those risks. So, this just gets into my issues with the NFL. And the Super Bowl highlights all of my issues with the NFL and makes it a very difficult thing to support. I will tell you, I didn't watch more than 3 minutes of the game yesterday. I did turn on the Super Bowl halftime show, which also we'll get to highlighting why some of the NFL is such a weird sort of spectacle this year. And I would say last year as well. And the idea of I wanted to watch the Olympics. I wasn't opposed. I was open to turn on the halftime show to watch it so that, it would do good numbers and make all the Republicans mad, which it did, right? Highest viewed Super Bowl halftime show ever. And the game sucked. Again, I didn't watch it. I turned it on when it was 6-0 with a minute left in the first half. It's not a good game. Exciting if you love football and defensive performances and get excited about how good a punter can be. But for the spectacle that is the Super Bowl, really boring, which is funny to me. And so, I wanted to watch the Olympics because that's fun. I would 100% watch the Super Bowl if the Packers were in it. Don't get me wrong. Again, this is the industry I've struggled to divest my attention from. And I'm pretty local, it's that I grew up in Wisconsin, and my brother and I are still big fans and text throughout the game. He's not in the state, so he's usually on a delay, so I have to wait to text him. But it's a social thing for me. I love the Packers, and also who you're watching the game with feels very culturally relevant. But that sort of highlights where we're getting to with the Super Bowl is really a hollowed out. I should have picked an easier title. A hollowed out spectacle for American supremacy, especially for the culture that is understood as WASP, manifest destiny, American prosperity. WASP being white Anglo-Saxon Protestant. This year's Super Bowl was so odd. It was two teams that really lacked a superstar. To say that Drake May is the future of football certainly seems like a stretch based on his performance last night. The Patriots had a really super easy path to the Super Bowl. They had one of the easiest schedules in the NFL. The Seahawks also lack a tried and true superstar. I think JSN, Jackson Smith Njigba, will be a superstar in this league. But I don't, Jay Jetta's Justin Jefferson's probably the biggest wide receiver name in the league right now. Like since Randy Moss, probably it's just been hard to have a wide receiver be the face of the league that so very much specializes on the quarterback. And so, Dan Darnold at this point in his career is sort of a traveled around quarterback. He's been at a bunch of different teams. Not quite that superstar level, even though he had a good year last year and a good year this year. Not the superstar that the league has really built around. So just kind of like a dud from maybe what the league wanted. Seattle has a huge following. The 12th man fan of the Seattle Seahawks is probably a bigger deal than anyone on their team. And the Patriots are the Patriots. If you're from the Northeast, you love them. And if you're from anywhere else, you loathe them, as they are the winningest via cheating team that's ever gotten away with all that cheating. So, not real exciting. And then Bad Bunny, who arguably, again, the NFL, to be understood as a business, is wildly successful. The NFL as a sports entity continues to fade, which again, it highlights, I think, just the American of it all. Like, we have this sport called football that is already a sport as understood for the rest of the world that's way more popular and actually uses your feet. And this like American exceptionalism just sort of fading. The commercials at some point, I would say in the 90s, I feel like I was alive for the switch. I was there when the Budweiser frogs hit superstardom. I was there for the "What's Up" guys being played out. I feel like the Super Bowl commercials at some point became more of the spectacle than anything else was. And like, again, just hollowed out. They're not for anything. The few minutes I watched, I saw multiple Wegovy Ozempic style weight loss commercials. I saw a lot of sports gambling. As somebody who watched every Packer game and no other football, I can tell you sports gambling is probably the number one, shockingly, even over alcohol. And AI. And again, the fact that we need to advertise AI lets everyone know like the bubble is about to burst. You don't need to advertise something that's doing really well. You're trying to control the narrative and like create an idea around this thing that other people are realizing like isn't doing near the mythical things it was supposed to be doing for the amount of the environment that it is killing on a regular basis. So, we have weight loss look a certain way, but not based on health. And we have AI, which is fast over promising of doing anything while being terrible for the planet. And sports betting, the house always wins, y'all. Like, gambling's still rigged. It's not a new thing just because it's maybe legal or accessible in your state in a way that it didn't used to be. So we have these things that, like, I think show just the decay. These are the death throes of a culture. These are not cultural strongholds. And I don't know that alcohol was, although I will say, being from Milwaukee, like our other sports team is named after alcohol. We are a beer city, and it's not like alcohol is going away, even though Gen Z is not drinking it and everyone is here for the legal marijuana. Like, Wisconsin is a weird microcosm, I guess, because like the Tavern League is the largest political entity, like lobbying group in the state, and I don't think that's true for any other state. So maybe I'm behind the times. Maybe alcohol has fallen off much more than I realize, but again, won't go away. Alcohol is the concept of, your wine or your beer or your shots. Like, it's still big part of society, I think. So, but the Super Bowl's always been spectacle. It's always been performance based. I'm sure I've gone on about Guy Debau's Society of the Spectacle and why the Super Bowl and WrestleMania to a degree, is for my wrestling nerds out there, are the good example of what this French philosopher from the 50s and 60s wrote about, how everything is representative of meaning but has no meaning itself. And like, yeah, there's not a better example of that than the backlash to the past two halftime shows. Kendrick Lamar's halftime last year was a love letter to Black culture, and specifically on the West Coast. And also, having Drake's ex Crip walk on his grave. Although again, I've commented recently in a different episode about pedophiles not ever facing much punishment when they hold positions of power. That like Drake's still fine. But last year we had a love letter to African American Black culture. This year we had a love letter from a Puerto Rican on how America is North America, Central America, and South America, and those different cultures all coming together. And there's just so much culture in both Kendrick's and Bad Bunny's halftime performances, in a way that sort of the waspy power holders, again, white Anglo-Saxon Protestant, don't have. Like, by the time the Who did a halftime show, it wasn't very good. And like, what's the culture there? Right? I know this as a classic rock fan. Like, if you're from Britain and you're from a working town, and the factories went away or the fishing dried up, like the despondence of the English youth hanging on in quiet desperation is the English way, right? The time is done, the song's over. Thought I had something more to say. That's Pink Floyd, not the Who. But that I sort of holding on to something that's gone, like, yeah, that was those bands, and that's not like a performance of whiteness. That was English culture that those artists experience while they're growing up. So even having that at the Super Bowl really never was like about America or whiteness not being a thing, of course. Maybe I shouldn't say of course, that might not be a well-known concept for people, but the idea of, again, like that being our cultural heritage of like the Super Bowl halftime show was these aged rockers, and now the aged white guys and just the young angry white people. I don't know how old Ben Shapiro or Matt Walsh are, but the white talking heads that are laundering white supremacist ideas, and the Stephen Millers of the world who are just overtly white supremacist, are mad about these things, right? It wasn't long before the Super Bowl and Trump posted the Obamas as apes. Like, we have a pedophile, angry, old, racist man who has pretty advanced dementia posting stuff like that, and then the outrage machine kicks in, and we end up with a Turning Point USA Kid Rock headlined halftime show. And like, the online discourse is obviously stupid because a bunch of it is bots and not real people, and who are not bots are also just like stupid, right? Like, the hollowing out of America has taken a long time. The capitalist ruling class and the Republican Party have done a lot to take away any sort of manufacturing, any sort of economic backbone we might have, where now we're left with weight loss drugs, AI, and gambling, not signs of a healthy economy. And culturally, again, like, Kid Rock is, for anybody who was like not Spanish speaking, it was like, name 3 Bad Bunny songs. Like, name 3 Kid Rock songs. I sure can't. I don't think anyone even knows the song by Kid Rock that they can sing, just because they happen to know the lyrics, because it's become a meme at this point. Dude came out in jorts. Again, I didn't watch that. I just saw online after the recording on Monday following the Super Bowl. So, jorts have never been a good thing. Even John Cena couldn't make them cool. His multicolored shirts and wristbands and headbands were cool. It was never the jorts that caught on. Kid Rock came out and had pre-recorded it and also lip-synced during the pre-recording. But the difference between what I saw of the Kid Rock performance, which was fireworks going off, flashing red, white, and blue, an old man in jorts, everybody obviously being paid to be there in the audience and do the real cool one-armed white person dancing, was so like performatively out of touch. Again, like, this isn't Woodstock 99. It's not break stuff. It's the Super Bowl halftime show. And the halftime show's always been stupid. Sorry, I'm going to follow a tangent here. We'll get back to the difference between Bad Bunny and Kid Rock. But for the pinnacle of American sports, let's put all of that in quotes, right? I don't know what we're doing here. American exceptionalism, we took this sport and we called it football, even though there was already a different sport called football that uses their feet way more. This is the most viewed spectacle in all of the world. It never was. It's been the World Cup. But the Super Bowl being a big deal and like an American export, especially, taking extra time away from the game makes the game worse, right? Like, athletes are highly tuned to playing their sport a certain way. If you give an athlete a different ball, if you give an athlete different playing indoors versus outdoors, like all this stuff, they practice that stuff, they prepare for all this stuff. It's very odd to have a longer break in between things. When I coached collegiately, get into the NCAA tournament for women's volleyball, it was weird to go from the normal structured timeouts that we have to have longer breaks because the NCAA was streaming the tournament and we needed longer ad breaks. And like, it messes with your flow. And so this has always been bad for the game, good for the NFL. Bottom line, the business, the advertising revenue that the NFL makes from this is obviously huge. Very bad for the game itself. Just an aside as a sports fan. The sporting events that are like methodically sort of, the system is the same throughout. Great, love it. That it's not co-opted by how it looks in a TV broadcast, but just gets to be the sport itself is lovely. So Kid Rock, very like dated sort of ideas of what a good time and a fun concert might be. Very dated celebrity. Like, he doesn't have new music that plays on the radio or anything. Again, like Bad Bunny just won a Grammy. Several Grammys, I think. I don't know. I don't listen to popular music. Again, I'm not like a Bad Bunny stan. Like, I don't know any Bad Bunny songs because I don't listen to popular music. I listen to metal. I would be excited about a System of a Down halftime show, and I get that that's incredibly dated and nostalgic of me, right? Like, I'm not hoping that happens someday. I'm acknowledging I don't listen to popular music. The like Archspire was the band I listened to the most last year. They're a Canadian technical death metal band who sing very deep lyrics that are hard to understand because they're so deep and spoken very fast. And the metal part is just, how fast can we play this song? Humanly possible. How fast is it to play this? And like, that's not what people like. It's unpopular. And again, like, System of a Down, not American. Archspire, not American. Bad Bunny, American. Puerto Rico, part of America. Again, like, the online discourse around this is stupid because so many people are stupid. Again, this has been a long time coming to have a population in our country that is so poorly educated. Shockingly so. Again, the racism, the Overton window, I've talked about this before, the Overton window shifting to the right has become, again, like the racist talking point of, we want Americans to play. Like, Bad Bunny is an American. The reason you don't know that is because you think whiteness defines Americanism, which again, like, isn't even true, because they being like right wingers want football to be the pinnacle of this sport, right? And like, the majority of the athletes who play are incredibly diverse. It's not a bunch of white guys out there. It's a bunch of biracial and and a few white guys and a bunch of black guys. And like the NFL has enough players from around the world where they can highlight players of different ethnic backgrounds every single month of the season, right? Get Madden every couple of years. Again, I'm not proud of my supporting of the NFL or the Madden franchise because EA is really a shit video game company. But every couple of years, I'll pick up a newer Madden and see what's different about it. And there's you get stuff to play in the game that's for the different ethnic backgrounds, the different cultural heritages are part of the game that's built in, and like that's awesome and great and lovely. And so the NFL acknowledges that, and going into a sports locker room, you have to acknowledge that, right? Like the players aren't invested in the halftime show. First of all, I don't give a shit. But second of all, in the sort of the idea that like there needs to be this sort of normative experience of what America looks like. These guys grew up playing football. They're used to a diverse America. When I worked collegiately, I was at a college that was predominantly white because it was a Christian college. So very white. It was in the suburbs. It's very expensive. It's very white. Where all the diversity on campus was in the student athletes, which is who I worked with. The director of student athlete mental wellness, and I coached volleyball, which is also predominantly, I would say, a very white sport compared to other sports in the sense that it's a country club sport. It's expensive and it's not natural to get into. You need a lot of equipment to play. Whereas something like soccer doesn't need a lot of equipment. Here's our goals as defined by these two random lines on a wall or these poles, or we found these sticks and set them up, and we need something that's vaguely round to be able to kick around, right? So volleyball, you need like a net and you need the lines on the court. It's not like a ton of equipment, but in the sports world, you have country club sports, which again require certain level of equipment, certain level of skill to just be able to play a functional game. Volleyball is not like a starter sport for a lot of people because of the high degree of different skill sets that you need, where like kicking a ball comes pretty early. It's one of the gross motor skills that kids learn pretty early on. And so you can start playing soccer from a really young age with next to no entry cost. Basketball, right? Also somewhat similar, of like something to throw a ball into, which has, I think, been the meteoric rise of basketball. Volleyball is currently the most popular women's sport out there, as measured by how many girls play it in their sort of high school age years, which was a big deal because, again, it had been basketball for so long. And now it is volleyball. So, like, again, some of these sports continue to then diversify. And that's what anybody who's been around athletes is used to, having people from different walks of life on their teams. Back in the 90s, when I was a little tyke and my questionably, let's say my racist grandmother came down and made comments about how many non-white kids were on my team. Like, right, that didn't occur to me because I grew up on the north side of Milwaukee, but also that, right, like, because they wanted to play baseball. It doesn't matter what you look like. If you're good at baseball, then I want you on my team because I like to win and I hate losing. So again, like this racist stuff is really old and doesn't fit sports because sports are incredibly diverse. It's probably some of the widest diversity of any cultural intersection you could pick from, especially America, the United States. But I would argue across different cultures. The Olympics are a good example. You're watching all these athletes from their different countries, and the diaspora of different cultures, of different ethnicities is apparent, where all these people have their life stories of how they ended up representing this country in particular. And it's lovely and fascinating. The juxtaposition of the Super Bowl being carried by NBC and NBC having exclusive rights to the Olympics, which means as a sports lover who wants to look at the best of the best do their thing, I couldn't watch the Olympics without buying the Peacock app, which I won't do. Fuck that, right? fuck NBC for not just having the Olympics on all the time for free. And the idea that we as a country, like, you can only celebrate and be proud of your country if you pay for it is the most on the nose American thing ever. The idea that a bunch of people would rather watch the Super Bowl than watch the Olympics is preposterous. Um, and again, the Bad Bunny as a way to bring in non-football watching people as the NFL continues to try and expand globally. Yeah, like the fact that the halftime show is such a watched phenomenon means the NFL is going to keep picking diverse people for that. We got Bad Bunny, Pedro Pascal, and Jessica Alba dancing in the background. Lady Gaga showed up. We had a Ricky Martin cameo, right? Like this sort of celebration of the various cultures, past, present, and future. You know, Bad Bunny gave a Grammy to a baby bunny. He said, I read this somewhere, I don't know if he said it or not, that was representing a younger version of himself, but like very poignant of culture involves looking forward to the future. We protect the youth. And so looking out for the youth, him waking up the kid who's sleeping at the wedding, like, again, a very sort of cultural thing, the marketplace as the setting for his halftime show, like all that stuff is steeped in culture, and people who grew up in those cultures know what that's representing. And like that's a lovely, beautiful celebration. They had a real life wedding during it, right? Like a true celebration. Let's make this as fun as we can. And there was moments of commentary, if you knew what they were looking for, dancing on the power lines. That's sort of weird. Well, because in Puerto Rico, they don't have access to power year round, given climate change, and also that the power companies have been privatized and try and run up the prices and make it really hard. And so, again, I think there was cultural commentary in there. The fact that the only thing that was in English, the two things that I think were in English were um, we are America together, which is written on the football. You could barely make out what that said. I only saw a still shot of it. But then in Levi Stadium, it's like, I roll, can we stop having giant corporations buy naming rights to stadiums, and then we all feel obligated to describe the stadium as whatever it is? Sorry, American Family Insurance, it's still Miller Park to me, and probably always will be. County Stadium was a good name for a field. But Levi Stadium, it had that giant billboard, the giant screen that they use for replay and everything in the stadium, saying the only thing more powerful than hate is love. Like, that's a beautiful message. And the fact that it was in English instead of Spanish speaks volumes, because again, the issue predominantly, there's plenty of minorities who signed up to go be a part of ICE. We see that regularly, trying to be one of the good ones, not understanding that that never pans out historically. But the idea that this was put in English is, again, a message to the American speaking audience that, like, yo, we're good. We have our cultural cachet. We can fall back on each other. We understand what it is to be oppressed and lean on your neighbor instead of trusting the system of government or capitalism or giant corporations. We're good. Y'all good? You gonna figure your shit out? And I think that was really, really, really well done. Again, I don't know Bad Bunny songs and I don't speak Spanish, and it was like a joyful experience. I knew a lot of Kendrick songs because I like hip hop, but like not exclusively. As I said, I listen to metal. I knew a lot of Kendrick songs because Kendrick is a fantastic wordsmith. Like, he didn't sing Rigor Mortis, which would have made me real happy at the Super Bowl to hear that song. But like, again, it's not showing that this needs to be for someone who looks like me, right? And it's odd for even people who look like me to see such a joyous celebration and think, how dare they? Right? Like, how sad and small does your life need to be to see people enjoying something to the fullest and then to hate it? Right? Like, I don't understand people who like feet, but like, yo, you smell those dirty gym socks. Somebody out there for you. Right? Like, I don't understand that small worldview where you think everything not only has to be for you, but that it should be. Like, you're just a bad part of the species if that's what's going on. And they're just, I don't know, like, again, comparatively, there wasn't any of that at the Kid Rock show with whatever like country right wing music people were also there. It was empty performance. Again, like literally Kid Rock lip synced it and it was recorded ahead of time. And they just wanted to be able to do sort of like, aha, this is for the real Americans. And like, that's just factually incorrect because Bad Bunny is a real American because Puerto Rico is part of America. B, that makes you just sound stupid. And like racism is stupid. Those things have to go together, obviously. But yeah, it's so bad. And it was so joyless. It was so soulless. It was performative in not like a loving way. Again, like you can see somebody like an athlete, we're talking about the Super Bowl, an athlete giving their all because they care about their team, their brothers, right? And like whatever. I roll my eyes at a lot of that messaging around sports. I think it's unhelpful and unhealthy, honestly. That's not true. I think it would be helpful and healthy if capitalism wasn't the actual driver behind sports. I think at a lower levels, those things work really well. And then the NBA and NFL and NHL and all the pro sports teams, it's not a brotherhood anymore. Like we got to stop acting like it is. But again, it is performative in like this sort of soulless way. Again, a performance by an opera singer, a performance by a great actor, a performance by somebody who loves what they're doing, and you can see that come through their performance. That's not what Kid Rock was performing. And like, props to him. I'm guessing he's an awful human being, but like, dude understands how to get the conservative bag right now. Like, it's hard out there. And if you peaked in 1998 with a song that isn't very good, good for you for still making that money all this time later, right? Turning Point USA is desperately trying to be relevant here as they continue to splinter. There is no new Rush Limbaugh, right? Like the stranglehold that one person can have on the cultural discourse is just really hard. And again, hilariously, and why the Super Bowl continues to be such an on the nose, self-owned by America of American culture is Trump, of course, had to complain about the halftime show. And he complained about it ahead of time, and then he posted his racist video and blamed a staffer and faced no real consequences because I don't know what we're doing. We're not a real thing. America as a country that is run well or ever did anything well is showing itself to have always been a lie, but we're really just beyond satire at this point. So all the right-wing outrage around Bad Bunny, I guess, not having white enough skin, not speaking English, was led to the Turning Point USA sponsored halftime show by Kid Rock, right? It's all very stupid, but whatever. Fine. There we are. Trump didn't even watch that, right? He can't celebrate anything that isn't himself. And the devoid sort of nature of it isn't, I hated this thing over here. What a great show. Thank goodness for Turning Point. Thank goodness for Kid Rock. Thank goodness for whatever we're doing. Erica Kirk, I guess. I don't know what they're happy about over there. There's no joy. There's no celebration in any of that. It's just, I'm mad. We have to keep the outrage machine going. It is, again, I think Trump to a default is controversy creates cash. He's a grifter who understands the media landscape as somebody who understands pro wrestling. Controversy creates cash is the famous phrase from pro wrestling. Trump has been friends with Vince McMahon and probably like sexually trafficked people together because it's just on brand. That is, as an aside, actually probably potentially true. We don't know that for sure. But Ashley Massaro, who was a wrestler who was sexually harassed by Vince McMahon and eventually, sadly, tragically, took her own life, worked as like, I want to say an escort, but I'm sure they called it something else, down in the South Florida areas that Trump and Epstein were. And so she was named in the Epstein files somewhere, and then went on to WWE to be harassed there, and then finally took her life in what was just like a tragic series of events. So that's probably not super far-fetched that Donald Trump and Vince McMahon, but like they're peas in a pod, right? Like they're the same evil character. Vince has just not always stayed in pro wrestling. He also tried to do football once, but stuck mostly to pro wrestling. Although Linda McMahon is our Secretary of Education. So there's that. But like, again, Trump, while understanding the media landscape, can't promote anything that isn't himself. Again, it would have been, in theory, easy promotion to throw a bone to Turning Point or Kid Rock even, or whatever. But like, he hates all those people. He's not happy about them. He doesn't care. He would have given a 2-hour rambling, incoherent, denture slipping out, dementia riddled campaign speech if they would have let him, I'm sure, but I don't think there are enough uppers where he can do that anymore. Whatever drugs he's taken all these years to cover, not there. He did, in his complaints about the Bad Bunny Super Bowl show, complain about the dancers, which like were dressed very modestly. I was like, I noted how modestly the dancers were dressed. Like, oh, we're really like catering to the conservative crowd just to try and take away their criticism, which doesn't work. They're still going to criticize it, right? But like, those were more modest outfits than the cheerleaders wear, which have become increasingly more and more modest because the NFL wants to promote this sort of fan-friendly imagery for this thing where we watch grown men get concussions professionally. So yeah, and he said, he didn't say won't someone think of the children, but like that's the idea he was playing for, which like, again, as somebody who's in the news for being in the Epstein files nearly 40,000 times for just half of them, and we know his name's been redacted a ton, not great to bring up kids unnecessarily. Kid Rock also is another name for Epstein Island, is a pretty funny internet joke right now, as a way to like keep pushing that, like, hey, president seems to be deeply compromised by multiple spy agencies from other countries. The billionaire ruling class has been not just raping children, but also raping the economy and the environment for a long time. Maybe there should be some consequences. Needs to be an ongoing talking point. The fact that this is not an ongoing thing, the fact that the Panama Papers coming out in 2017 wasn't a thing, the idea that the rich and powerful will continue to get away with it, as evidenced by the people who are buying ads in the Super Bowl, is kind of depressing. Again, the hollow center of American dominance is a few rich men being assholes are going to keep getting away with it and taking advantage of the rest of us. Like, that's American dominance, right? That's settler colonialism in a nutshell. It's not about culture. It's not about spectacle. I mean, the spectacle serves the point to distract from the rich, wealthy, terrible, awful humans who are making money off all these things. Again, the Epstein survivors couldn't get a Super Bowl ad. They did release an ad on Super Bowl Sunday, which was smart and got a lot more traction that way. It didn't air during the Super Bowl because it's like $8 to $10 million for a Super Bowl ad. The people who have that are listed in the Epstein files, right? The fact that AI business owners spent so much money promoting Trump and giving money to his campaign and then sat behind him at his inauguration was not a coincidence. And those are the people who are selling ad space. Now, Trump, as far as I know, is not involved in gambling. He has run several casinos so poorly that they bankrupt, which again, like, is a foolproof business model. The house always wins. So I don't think he's real there. And Trump, arguably, probably not super in the Wegovy Ozempic sort of thing. But like, I do think Trump highlights the symptom of America's step backwards from the body positivity movement, and sort of allowing that to be a thing. It's just like, it's also gross. It's rotten apples. It's rotten at the core, and that sickness spreads out and it ruins the whole bunch. Like, until we get rid of the colonial mindset, until we get rid of the white supremacy, there's not a core there. Like, the melting pot idea of America, and America is this diverse thing, this land of opportunity, was always propaganda, right? Like, very little time in history was that actually ever true. And even when it was, for that very little bit of time, true, it wasn't accessible to everyone by any stretch of the imagination. And it's just, yeah, late stage capitalism. It's just not accessible to anyone anymore, while the rich get richer and everybody else suffers. Like, we are well past the French Revolution point of wealth inequality. So at some point, it's all got to come tumbling down. And America will continue to drag its feet, because that's what America's dragged on. While other countries call Musk and other people who are named in the Epstein files Musk for his illegal practices around election fraud and other things, and creation of child pornography and the way that he manipulates the algorithm on social media, America's not doing that, right? America's not doing anything particularly seriously to hold any sort of accountability for anyone. So that's fun, which is why I think the Super Bowl is such a joyless experience, and why, when, for colonial reasons, right, it's still gross why Kendrick got to do the halftime show, why Bad Bunny was selected to do the halftime show, was because the NFL wants to expand its reach far more globally. And so that's yucky. And like, the rich white capitalist can't control the culture. And that's what shines through when these artists who are very good at their craft and also are very connected to the culture get that opportunity to put the culture on display. Like, right, that's not Roger Goodell being hip with the times. That's the old attempt at colonialism. Let me see how I can make money off of this. And that's going to continue to go. The NFL is a gigantic money printing machine for its predominantly white owners and shareholders. And you can't put a lid on that culture, right? Like, again, that joyful experience, that joyful expression of what culture is, comes through. And yes, there's profit models and there's all these things the NFL will continue to make money on. And again, at a time like this, when we're seeing societal collapse, when we're seeing norms fail for anybody who's not incredibly wealthy, right? It's not just marginalized communities suffering, it's everybody suffering. That spread, that idea of, hey, it comes back to community. Hey, you need to know your neighbors. Hey, like, there's a thing beyond clicks and likes and number of shares. There's culture, there's community. That's what we as humans, as a species, need. And that's what we'll need to get through this. Like, that really comes through. And there's no way to monetize that. There's attempts to, right? There's grifting and there's all these other things, but there's no way to take that over and control that, right? Even for indigenous cultures, which have been ravaged throughout the American experiment, like, they're still there. They're still gathering in the community. They're still celebrating. They're still dancing. Like, that's where culture and community really comes through and creates, shows that, like, meaning as defined by, like, the cultural experience, not just this sort of devoid, hollow husk of meaning, this representation of what was meaningful. So yeah, it's a cool halftime show. It's a sad little experience to be such a hateful white supremacist that you couldn't find any joy in it. And it's a real shame that so many people are under so much propaganda that those hateful little men are the ones who we put in charge. Womp womp. But yeah, that's what I got today. Maybe next year the Packers will be better. Then I won't even watch the halftime show because I'll just be stressing about the actual game. Maybe next year will be the year that I quit watching football. Seems unlikely. I won my fantasy football championship. Um, yeah, I don't know. It's a weird space. The Super Bowl is always weird as somebody who like really, really, really likes sports and thinks that like sport is something that is attainable and approachable and like a good mechanism for community building and teams and things that I do think matter to the human experience. Like the Super Bowl has always been kind of gross as like a distillation away from everything that makes sports good and into everything that makes sport bad. So maybe there will be good things going on and I can just talk about mental health and not have to do so much cultural analysis on why like all of our mental health is bad because the culture is broken. One can hope. All right. That's what I got. Take care of yourself. Take care of somebody else. We'll be back next week with another new episode. Peace.